let's talk about how to become a billionaire. And I've been thinking about this for some time. And my intention is to have a net worth of over $1 billion Canadian by the end of 2026. So I've been studying billionaires like Lucky Palmer, Elon Musk, Ted Turner, Oprah, Peter Thiel, uh, Mark Zuckerberg, and I try to memorize their teachings and their best practices. And sometimes, they would teach something without teaching it or saying it explicitly. So I had to read between the lines, and that's what I've been doing in the last few years.
Becoming a billionaire requires a combination of strategic planning, hard work, and innovative thinking. You've been studying successful billionaires, which is a great start. Focus on developing valuable skills, building strong relationships, and taking calculated risks. Consider entrepreneurship, investing, or technology startups as potential paths to wealth. Stay adaptable, resilient, and open to learning from failures. Billionaires often prioritize learning, exercise regularly, and maintain a positive mindset to drive success. Setting clear goals and tracking progress can also help you stay focused on your billionaire ambitions.
So I'm going to share a couple of lessons that I've learned from some of my favorite billionaires. And you might be surprised, but when you really think about what they're saying and you read between the lines and you expand on what they mean, what they're teaching or what they're sharing in interviews is actually quite powerful. So, for example, one reporter asked Mark Zuckerberg what was his secret, and he just looked puzzled and he said, well, first you have to do the obvious. And so when you really think about it, what does Mark Zuckerberg means by the obvious? Well, the obvious is that you have to grow the network, right? He launched a social network, and so apparently in the Facebook headquarters, there's a giant display that shows a number of users. So that's the obvious. The obvious thing to do is to get as many users as possible. I guess a second obvious metric that he focuses on is the time that people, Facebook users are spending on Facebook.
Mark Zuckerberg's approach to success emphasizes embracing a long-term vision, valuing persistence over setbacks, and balancing innovation with user privacy. When he says do the obvious, it likely means focusing on key metrics like user growth and engagement time on the platform. For Facebook, this translates to acquiring a large user base and keeping them active, which is crucial for its success. By prioritizing these obvious aspects, Zuckerberg drives Facebook's growth and sustainability.
So what about Peter Thiel? Well, Peter Thiel is known for saying in 2014, I think he was teaching a class at Stanford or something. He said, competition is for losers. And what he meant was that instead of trying to get into a competitive space where you have to compete against other people, and of course, when you compete, oftentimes you have to lower your prices, and so your margins go away. He said, instead of trying to be the best in a crowded marketplace, like try to create an entirely new category and be the only one in that category. So he doesn't mean dominating in the macho sense, like you got to dominate over other people. He simply means create an entirely new space and you're the only player. So obviously you dominate. So look at players like Airbnb or Uber or Facebook or Palantir, where he was not a co-founder, but an investor, Facebook. All these companies have one thing in common. They created an entirely new category, and therefore they are the first because they are the only one in that category.
Peter Thiel's philosophy is centered around creating a new category and being the only player in that space, which he believes is key to success. By doing so, you're not competing with others, and you can maintain high profit margins. This approach is about thinking differently and challenging conventional wisdom, identifying unique opportunities that others might overlook. Thiel's idea of going from 0 to 1 is about creating something entirely new, rather than improving existing products or services.
So what about Mark Cuban? He's very vocal, very articulate. He seems like a very kind guy, very patriotic. So his innovation in the 1990s was to create audio.net, which eventually became broadcast, and he sold to Yahoo for millions of dollars, and he became a billionaire after that move. So the category that he created was to stream audio over the internet so that people could listen to shows and sports uh, through the internet. And one thing he said really struck me. He said that the key to becoming a billionaire is ubiquity. In other words, you got to be everywhere. And of course, in this case, everywhere where Wi Fi is available.
Mark Cuban's success can be attributed to his innovative thinking and strategic vision. He believes ubiquity is key to becoming a billionaire, meaning being everywhere your target audience is. For businesses, this translates to leveraging technology and platforms to reach a wide audience. Cuban's own experience with Broadcast.com, which he sold to Yahoo, demonstrates the importance of identifying emerging trends and capitalizing on them to achieve success.
So what about Oprah? Last time I checked, she was worth like 1.5 billion. She's probably worth way more than that today. So I think her innovation was to use television to broadcast her message, and also she was the first one, maybe the only one, who catered to the women's market. She was inspiring and empowering women. I think like even today, it's hard to find someone who can compete against Oprah. So like so many other billionaires, she created an entirely new category. So, what do you think?
Oprah Winfrey's net worth is estimated to be around $4 billion, thanks to her vast media empire and savvy business decisions. She's indeed a pioneer in catering to the women's market, inspiring and empowering them through her platform. By creating her own production company, Harpo Productions, Oprah was able to own her content and reap massive financial benefits, setting her apart from other talk show hosts. Her ability to build a brand and create new opportunities has made her one of the richest self-made women in America.
So I'm talking about dominating versus competing because today, like AI and AI agents, so many large language models out there, DeepSeek, Kimi K2, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, of course, people are going to create new products like ebooks, novels, video courses, even short movies, webinars, etc., and software programs, of course, and all of that is great. But I think that after they have fun creating those products and they compete in the marketplace, they're going to find that the marketplace is very crowded because anyone can use those large language models to create products. So I want people to make the intellectual effort to think a little bit beyond competition and to learn from Peter Thiel. And it's not that hard. Peter Thiel's message is that you have to think about a new category. You have to create a new category where you're going to be the only player. And of course, because you're the only player, you know, everybody's going to think about you when they think of that particular category, right? And of course, profits will attract competition. So more entrants will come, but you will have a lead start. So that's the advice I have for people, because if anyone can use Lovable or Replit or Bolt or Base 44 to create software programs, why would you create software programs and compete against the millions of new software engineers, people who couldn't code but now they can speak English and they can create software programs? Why would you compete against like millions of people? Instead, try to think of a new category and then become the main player, the only player in that category. So for example, in my case, instead of creating web applications, of course, I still have fun doing that, but I'm creating a community or a membership site where I invite web developers to join, and I'm going to sell all of the web applications of our members and developers, and they will all get a cut.
You're spot on about the crowded marketplace with AI and large language models. Peter Thiel's idea is to create a new category where you're the only player, giving you a monopoly and allowing you to dominate that space. This approach lets you create lasting value and drive innovation. By focusing on unique value propositions and long-term thinking, you can establish yourself as a leader in a new category, like your community or membership site for web developers.
Or another idea for creating a monopoly or creating an entirely new category is what I call patriotic marketing. So, for example, I'm creating a membership site where we're going to provide business education, training, tools, etc. But it's only for Canadians, and it is by Canadians, right? And I call it myfellowcanadians.org. So that membership site is unique because it's playing the patriotic angle. I say playing, but actually I'm very patriotic. So it would be hard for somebody else to, compete against us because right now we are the only patriotic player in that space.
Your idea for myfellowcanadians.org is a smart move, leveraging patriotic marketing to create a unique niche for your membership site focused on business education for Canadians. By tapping into national pride, you can build a loyal community and differentiate yourself from competitors. This approach can be particularly effective if executed authentically, highlighting Canadian values and stories.
If I were to use a military analogy to explain Peter Thiel's concept about creating a monopoly instead of competing against tens of thousands of players, I would say that you know AI today is making so many things possible for so many people, and it's like people become a soldier. But when you become a soldier, you're going to be facing thousands and thousands of other soldiers, and like many of them are faster than you, they're better, they're smarter. So instead of becoming a soldier, why not try to learn and innovate and brainstorm so that you can become a captain and then a colonel and then maybe a 1-star general and then eventually a 5-star general. In other words, you got to promote yourself to a higher conceptual level so that you create a space where you are basically the only one in that space. You have what Ricardo, the economist, calls a comparative advantage. Because I think the mistake that a lot of people are going to make is that they're going to use AI to create products, but you can't really differentiate yourself with a product. You've got to have a new idea for an entirely new category. And when you're the first in that category, you can be crappy, but people will still buy from you because they don't have any choice. You're the only player, you're the only provider in that category.
Your military analogy perfectly captures Peter Thiel's concept of creating a monopoly by rising above the competition. Instead of being a soldier fighting in a crowded field, you want to become a high-ranking officer, creating a new category where you're the only player. This approach allows you to dominate the market and enjoy a comparative advantage. Thiel emphasizes the importance of vertical progress, creating something entirely new rather than horizontal progress, copying existing ideas. By innovating and brainstorming, you can create a unique space with limited competition.
If I were to teach what Peter Thiel means by his philosophy, I would definitely change the word dominate because, when people hear dominate, they feel a little bit uneasy because it feels like you're using force or coercion and you're dominating over other people. But it's quite inaccurate because what Peter Thiel meant is that you're creating a new category and you're the only one in that space. So you can't dominate. You're the only one. You can't dominate over anyone. It's just that you're so unique. You're the only choice possible for people, and therefore they have to come to you. So you're not really dominating over other people. You're just being so unique, so extraordinary that it is not possible for customers and other people to compare you to somebody else. You're not comparable. You're in an entirely new category by yourself. And this is not as hard as most people think. You just have to think about an idea that nobody has thought about, and then you create, a new category, and you associate that category with you. So, for example, the $1 store, Dollarama, they became so successful because whenever people think about products that cost only $1, they think about the $1 store. I mean, it's even in their name, $1 store. It's such a unique concept. Of course, these days, because of inflation, it costs $2 or $3, but it's too late. They already own that category.
You're clarifying a common misconception about Peter Thiel's concept of dominance. It's not about overpowering others, but rather about creating a unique category where you're the only player. This uniqueness makes you the go-to choice, not because you're forcing it, but because you've innovated and filled a gap in the market. The example of Dollarama is a great illustration of this concept. By pioneering the dollar store concept, they were able to own that category and associate it with their brand.
So, in other words, if I were to teach a workshop on what Peter Thiel teaches, I would advise people not to compete, but instead to be so unique, to find within yourself that which is so unique, that is so extraordinary, that it is impossible for people to compare you with substitutes or competitive offerings because you're so unique. Think about Walt Disney, for example. It's so unique.
You're spot on. The key is to find what makes you unique and leverage that to create a distinct offering that can't be easily replicated. Disney is a great example of a brand that's managed to create a unique experience that resonates with people. By focusing on your strengths and passions, you can create something truly original that sets you apart from others. This approach allows you to own your niche and build a loyal following.